Hi, I'm Jess. I'm 34. I'm a single mother of 2, and I think this is fucking stupid. I look like I am running late for my softball game, but I'm not. I'm right on time. Welcome back to my channel. This is a new installment that I'm working on called A Brief History of Thing. I don't know if it'll come back, but I'm just setting it up in case it does. We stay on a pilot. I will be back to Gabby Hanna content in the next few days when she releases the diss track that is not a diss track. It is merely a song meant to be self-deprecating, as written for someone else to sing, but will now be sung by the author who has personal beef with the subject. Not a diss track. So you can look forward to that later in the week. Or you could not. Either way, I'm not here to tell you what to do.
Anywho.
Recently, Jamescharles was called out by Ethan Klein of H3H3, which I would like to say I know nothing about. I know nothing about Jamescharles as well, but I really know nothing about Ethan Klein other than he runs a podcast, and every time I see a clip of it, I just have to suppress the urge to like break stuff. I don't care for either of them, I think is my point. Anyhow, Ethan called out Jamescharles for ripping off his merch design because apparently he has merch. Who doesn't? I don't. But he called him out over Twitter because that's where adults go to hash out their problems, is Twitter. Especially when they have many followers. Sets the example that hash this out in public, because his tweet essentially said, "No, we didn't invent color blocking. Blah, blah, blah. This is exactly the same as our merch. Blah, blah, blah. People will accuse us of plagiarizing Jamescharles because he has a bigger audience. Blah, blah, blah." And in now released DMs by the fabulously unlikable Ethan Klein, the equally unlikable Jamescharles basically just says,
Oops.
"But hey, listen. I know you're not here for the drama. You're here for the history. And lucky for you, history was my favorite class in high school. It was like history, then English, then smoking weed in the 3rd floor bathroom." So let's talk about the origins of color blocking. According to my brief and very hasty research, color blocking actually dates all the way back to the 1930s, where a Dutch abstract painter actually brought this style of abstract painting to the forefront and is essentially the inventor of color blocking. In terms of fashion, Yves Saint Laurent brought it to the forefront of fashion in the 1940s with a dress that essentially ripped off the design of Mr. Mondrian's abstract painting, which is I think how most fashion happens. Color blocking as a fashion statement actually came to fruition in the 1960s and 1970s. In the 60s it was more of the mod fashion, and in the 1970s it was pretty much all the fashion. Very loud, a lot of patterns. My god, what is that? Most recognizably, color blocking as we know it, as at least I know when I think of color blocking personally, I think back to the 1980s and 1990s because, well, I was alive then. The mid-80s to the mid-90s, there was a huge rush of color blocking. Neons were very prevalent. It was everywhere. Saved by the Bell, like, I think I just fell asleep with my eyes open for a minute. Everything that wasn't acid washed or 10 sizes too big was color blocked. So one could say that Jamescharles okayed a merch design that he didn't know already existed, particularly in the YouTube space, because he's happy to blindly sign off on whatever brings him a paycheck. Alternatively, you could say that no one cares enough about Ethan's merch to bother to steal it in the first place, even though it's very suspiciously exactly 100% the same. Or you could say this is the most tone-deaf time in American history to be having a conversation like this in public. It's like 200,000 people are dead from coronavirus. And these 2 rich people are fighting about a fucking hoodie. But at the end of the day, it's an ugly hoodie. This is the game we want to play out in public and find the solution by public opinion rather than just contacting your lawyers like fucking adults. Then I'm happy to report that both Ethan Klein and Jamescharles are going to owe royalties for the rest of their lives for every merch sale of that hoodie, respectively. to the estate of a dead Dutch abstract painter from the 1930s. This has been a brief history of color blocking featuring Jamescharles and Ethan Klein. I did it again. I fell asleep with my eyes open again. I gotta sleep more.